All right, buckle up, folks. We're diving into some seriously cool space news today.
Oh, is this about that Chinese company, what was it called?
Deep Blue Aerospace.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just started selling tickets for space tourism flights, like actual trips to space.
No way. Those suborbital ones, right?
Yep. Suborbital, 12 minutes total, with 5 whole minutes of weightlessness. And get this, tickets went on sale earlier today.
Today! Seriously.
Seriously. And for a cool $211,000, you could be floating in space in just a few years. 2027, to be precise.
Well, that's sooner than I thought this stuff would be happening. It seems like China's commercial space sector is really kicking into gear.
Tell me about it. They even kicked off ticket sales with a live stream shopping event. Can you believe it? Buying a ticket to space while you're scrolling through your phone.
Oh, that's wild. Very 21st century. When did that even start?
The live stream was earlier today, 6 p.m. their time, which is 1,000 GMT.
Wow, so it's already happening. All you need is a $7,000 deposit.
That's 50,000 yuan if you're keeping track. So, maybe not exactly pocket change for most of us, but still, Deep Blue is really focused on reusable rocket technology, which should, at least in theory, drive down the cost eventually.
Right, like what SpaceX has been doing with their Falcon 9s.
Exactly. Reusability is the key if we want to make space travel more accessible. And it's worth pointing out, Deep Blue isn't the only player in this game. There's another Chinese company, CAS Space, that's planning space tourism flights too. For 2028, they're saying.
So there's a real race going on here.
It seems like it. But let's get back to Deep Blue for a sec. What does that $211,000 actually get you, besides those 5 minutes of weightlessness?
Well, the whole suborbital flight experience is about 12 minutes. But yeah, the main attraction is definitely that weightlessness at the edge of space.
I can only imagine what that must feel like. 5 minutes of pure, unadulterated zero-G.
Yeah. Must be pretty amazing. But it's important to remember this whole venture is just a small part of something much bigger. China's overall ambitions in space. I mean, they've already accomplished a lot, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely. Crewed missions to orbit, their own space station, and even rovers on both the moon and Mars. It's incredible how quickly they've become a major player in space.
It's not just about catching up anymore either. They're really aiming to be a leader. They've even got plans for crewed missions to the moon by 2030 and to Mars by 2033.
Wow, they're really going for it.
And remember that world first launch from the far side of the moon? That was a pretty big statement. It showed just how advanced their space program has become.
Yeah, China is clearly serious about this. But what I find really interesting is the role of these commercial companies, like Deep Blue. There seems to be a unique relationship between them and the government in China.
Right. It's a fascinating dynamic. Back in 2014, the Chinese government decided to open up their space sector to private investment. And that move led to a boom in companies like Deep Blue.
I see. So in a way, it's a collaborative effort between the state and these private companies.
Yeah, you could say that. And a lot of these companies were actually founded by people who used to work for the government, like former employees or academics from state institutes.
So there are these deep links, for lack of a better term, back to the government. I wonder if that gives them a leg up in the space race.
Maybe. It definitely creates a different landscape compared to the US, where you have companies like SpaceX that are much more independent.
So in China, it's more of a team effort to push their space program forward.
Exactly. The government even labeled the commercial space sector as a strategic emerging industry. So they're really putting their support behind it. And it's not just at the national level. Individual provinces and cities are also creating their own space industry development plans.
It sounds like they're really going all in on this.
They definitely are. But Deep Blue and space tourism are really just one piece of the puzzle. They've got some pretty ambitious plans for satellite constellations, too.
Okay, so let's talk about those next.
So these satellite constellations, this is where things get really mind-blowing. China's working on 2 mega constellations, Guoang, which is planned to have 13,000 spacecraft, and then there's G60 Starlink with 12,000.
Hold on, 13,000. That's an insane number of satellites.
It is, right. Imagine that, thousands of these tiny satellites all working together up in orbit.
It's hard to even picture. What are they planning to do with all those satellites anyway?
Well, it's all about creating this kind of like a space-based infrastructure for lots of different applications. You can use them for communications, navigation, even observing the Earth. And yeah, there are military applications too.
So basically, they want to have eyes and ears everywhere in space. But why so many? Why not just, I don't know, a few hundred?
Well, part of it is the speed. They need to deploy these things fast. There are only so many slots, you could say, available for spacecraft in certain orbits. And then there's competition for the frequencies they need to use. So China's in a race against time, not just against other countries, but against the limits of space itself.
Sounds like the stakes are pretty high. Is this another aspect of that U.S.-China rivalry we were talking about?
Oh, definitely. Whoever controls these satellite networks will have a huge advantage in a lot of areas, communications, navigation, even military intelligence.
I see. So it's not just about exploring space anymore. It's about who has the upper hand.
Yeah, and China's plans with these constellations are a direct challenge to the U.S. dominance in this area. Think about SpaceX's Starlink. It's already providing internet to millions of people globally.
And China wants a piece of that, right? They see these constellations as a way to boost their economy and strategic interests. They want to provide these services to their own people and maybe even to other countries. It's almost like a new space race.
It is. And just like the original space race, there's a lot of mistrust between the U.S. and China. They both accuse each other of having hidden military goals behind their space programs.
So while we're talking about space tourism and these impressive satellite constellations, it seems like there's this underlying tension. It's kind of like a replay of the Cold War, but this time it's in space. Back then, it was the threat of nuclear weapons. What are the risks now with this new space race?
Well, the risks are real. For one thing, there's the militarization of space. There's a real concern about potential conflict, even a space war. And then there's the problem of space debris. Every time we launch something into space, it creates more debris. And the more crowded it gets up there, the bigger the risk of collisions.
Right. More satellites mean more chances for accidents. And it's not just about satellites hitting each other. What about the debris falling back to Earth?
That's a big concern, too. Even a small piece of space debris can cause a lot of damage if it re-enters the atmosphere and hits Earth. It's a serious environmental problem that's only going to get worse as we launch more and more stuff into space.
So this whole satellite race, it creates this dilemma. On one hand, we have these technologies that could connect people, provide important services, help us understand the universe better. But on the other hand, there are these big risks: conflict, environmental damage, even the potential for loss of life.
It's a complex situation, no easy answers. It really highlights the need for international cooperation. We need to be responsible about how we use space.
Absolutely. We can't just ignore the risks and keep charging ahead. We need to have some serious discussions about managing this competition in space. We need to make sure it benefits everyone, not just a few countries.
Couldn't agree more. It's a balancing act. Finding that balance is going to be critical for the future of space exploration.
So where do we go from here?
I think the first step is awareness. The more people understand what's going on, the more likely we are to make good decisions about how we use space.
And that's where discussions like this come in, right? We need to keep asking questions, exploring all sides of the issue, thinking critically about the future of space.
Exactly. And yeah, there are definitely risks, but there's also incredible opportunity. Space exploration has always been about pushing the boundaries, expanding our understanding. It's about learning more about ourselves and where we fit in the universe.
It's a journey, and one we need to take together. But for now, let's shift gears a bit. We've been focused on China's ambitions, but what about the experience of space tourism itself?
Yeah.
What will it actually be like to be on one of those Deep Blue flights?
Yeah, let's get back to that. Okay, so picture this. You've bought your ticket, you're all strapped in, ready to blast off on one of Deep Blue's space tourism flights. What happens next?
Well, I imagine the anticipation is going to be through the roof. You're in this sleek spacecraft, the countdown starts, and then boom, you're rocketing up into the sky, leaving Earth behind.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. So you're shooting up towards space. What's it like once you get there? To the edge of space, I mean. As you go higher, the sky gets darker and darker until it's this incredible inky black, and the stars, they just blaze, brighter than you've ever seen them. Then the engine cuts off and everything goes quiet. And that's when you experience it, weightlessness.
Wow, I can't even imagine. What does weightlessness feel like? Is it hard to describe?
It's like nothing else you've ever felt. No gravity pulling you down. You can just float, spin around, watch things drift by like they're frozen in time. It's exhilarating, really unique.
Amazing. But I bet it's a little disorienting too, right?
It can be, definitely. Your body's not used to being in zero G, so it takes some getting used to.
I bet. Aside from feeling weightless, what else will passengers experience? I mean, the view must be pretty incredible.
Ah, the view is breathtaking. You see the curve of the Earth, the thin blue line of the atmosphere, and then the vastness of space stretching out in front of you. It really changes your perspective.
I can only imagine. Do you think this kind of experience-based tourism, I mean, will it ever be affordable for regular people?
I think it's possible. As technology improves and launches become cheaper, space tourism could become more accessible. We're already seeing companies like Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin offering suborbital flights. As competition grows, prices should come down.
So maybe one day it won't just be for the super rich.
Exactly. Maybe someday anyone will be able to experience space travel.
That's a pretty amazing thought. But we've also talked about the challenges that come with space exploration, especially as it becomes more commercialized. We need to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Make sure space is used responsibly for everyone, not just for profit.
I totally agree. It's a global responsibility. We need international cooperation and a lot of planning to make sure we don't mess things up. We have to think about space debris, the potential for conflict, all of it.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive today, it's clear that we're entering a really exciting time for space exploration. Space tourism could become much more common, and China is definitely a force to be reckoned with. But we have to remember the challenges and approach all this with both excitement and a sense of responsibility.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Space exploration shows us how ingenious humans can be and how much we want to explore the unknown. But it's a journey we have to take thoughtfully.
And with that, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Chinese space tourism and what the future might hold for space exploration.
Until next time, keep looking up and never stop exploring.